from my end? No. Okay.
It says the stream is live.
Good. Okay. Yes, we are live indeed. And welcome everybody to the fourth and final leadership live of this month. This is Saturday. It is Saturday, the 29th of June. It's the weekend, and just like every Saturday, we have a round table typish discussion at 9:30 a.m. And it is now 9:31, so we're doing very well for time. We have a special guest, Dave Huxtable, this morning. Every week we have a special guest, a different one, and the audience is part of the conversation. So please come. You can watch or rewatch even, but do come to participate. We'd love to have you here. We'll even send you a virtual cup of tea. Okay, so in the lives, what do? We talk about a type of language that very few people talk about because they are too busy learning the 12 tenses of English. Most people don't know that this type of language is even there, but the most effective leaders use it every day. So effectively, you might not even know that they're there. You'll assume that it's the boss who's the leader, when actually it is the guy at reception who greets you every morning as you come in. They make it seem easy. They talk the walk when everyone else is focused on the walking. And these leaders love listening. The best of them are introverts, according to Jim Collins. And they actually listen to learn. They learn to lead. And they know what they're doing when they open their mouths. They use, yes, you guessed it, the language you need, the language to lead. So welcome, Dave, after all of that blurb there. And thank you very much for coming this morning. I'm going to tell people a little bit about you. You have a lifelong passion for languages, which is very similar to me, though you speak many more. You speak 216. No, that's not true. You speak 10, which is a lot. Between B1 and C2. That's very interesting. Which ones are C2? English, I suppose. And
English, French, and Spanish.
Oh, you're French. Okay, yes, that's a difficult one. And you have smatterings and knowledge of several more. Much to my shame, your Irish is much, because I am Irish, or I was some Irish in me. Your Irish is much, much better than mine. You have lived and worked in 10 different countries, and you've taught English, French, and linguistics. You were director of the British Council English Language Teaching Center in Mexico City, and that's where our paths crossed in 2000 and when was it? 6 or something like that.
Oh my God!
When you were my boss, and one of the best bosses ever. I tell you, I learned an awful lot about being a boss, and a lot about the language. Being careful about the language that you use when you are a leader. You coordinated as well a massive English language teacher training program in China before moving into senior leadership roles. And you now live in California, where you work as a leadership coach. And you're also a YouTube creator with an enormous following. And everybody loves your passion for languages. You have 36,000 people following you. Is that correct? And
Indeed.
Growing.
Yes. Yep.
Well done you. Yeah. And you focus a lot on pronunciation. I think you do, don't you? That's something
quite a bit. Yeah.
Really think. Yeah, I think it's very important as well. But you mix it with humor and accents, and it is a little bit zany. It's a little bit Monty Python-esque. Okay, so thank you very much for coming today, Dave, because you are an expert, and really you are what we call a polyglot, aren't you? And that's one of the reasons that I invited you, besides the fact that you are incredibly knowledgeable and you can look at problems from different perspectives. You really are somebody who has learned lots of languages. So I really want to put the ideas that we've heard in the previous 3 lives to the test. So I'd like to remind the audience to please join in, please feed into the discussion through the chat. That's very, very important. Please type into the chat, because it's not only a dialogue, it is a round table. And we share a recording every week of what we've of the session, so it's not the end of the world if you can't come. We're here every Saturday at 9:30 in the morning Central Standard Time. And at the end of every month, we publish self-study material, which is actually available now on the topic of the month. This month was getting to C1, getting to an advanced level in a language, in a foreign language. And the email address, I'll put it in the description. It's leadershiplives@dariidiomas.com, and you can email us to ask for a copy of that. So how are we doing? Are we transmitting? I can't see anything in YouTube. I think it says that we are transmitting live, but I think there's a bit of a lag there. Not to worry. Let's begin. So the first question, Dave. Welcome once again. So the idea of this session is you are the what would you be? You're the corregidor of the three that have come before you. You are the you know the you have the final word because you've chosen to take the final. Nobody wanted the final section of the month.
Excuse me.
Go for it. So your job is to really kind of validate, as it were, and maybe kind of like because it's very important, isn't it? Maybe point out the kind of subtleties or nuances in the arguments that we've heard up to now, because nothing is ever black and white, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it'd be interesting to bring my own experiences, your own experiences, to that and give further examples. I mean, one of the things that struck me listening to those previous speakers, it's unusual for me to agree with everything somebody says on the topic of language, but I was just sitting there nodding. And we all come, I mean, I might be speaking last, but I'm by far not the person with the greatest expertise, because all of the guests that you've chosen
really
have expertise in different areas. So, publishing, teaching, teacher training, materials development, specifically working in developing leadership competencies.
Yeah.
We're all experts.
But I think you're selling yourself short there, because you did study Chinese in university, and I'm sure you studied a big chunk of linguistics as part of that. So you do have the theory there, and you have trained teachers and managed teachers, which is a very difficult thing to do, and gotten results for everyone involved, all stakeholders. So that's a pretty amazing thing. And but I think I know what you mean, that you're really more nuts and bolts, and that's maybe what you'd like to do, is put these theories to the test regarding our experiences. I mean, we can talk maybe about my experience in a minute. I mean, I very much agree with Andreina, Maria Luisa, and Alejandro. I have learned to be a leader, and don't know whether I'm there yet. But I speak various languages. But okay, so the ingredients that they suggest are self-awareness, a strong dose of self-awareness, being able to assess your own progress and make decisions about what you want to learn. So to say to the teacher, well, actually, I prefer to do more of this because, which is unusual in a student, and a curiosity for learning, which is not very fashionable these days, but it is, I think, one of the 21st century skills from the UNESCO. The ability to analyze language, which is not very fashionable either these days, and see how it works. So there's kind of a formalism in there as well, but mixed with the pragmatism. It's not the formalism that we know with PPP. It's quite a pragmatic formalism, I suppose, whatever that means. Now, so we have those different ingredients. Have these been the essential ingredients for you over the years when learning the 216 languages that you know? Why not?
Yeah. So I think for me, curiosity is one of the kind of guiding principle, but it's something I have discovered to be incredibly powerful.
Yes.
So I studied to shift careers. So going from a leadership role into becoming a leadership coach, I actually studied the skills involved in coaching and got a qualification in that.
Yes.
And one of the real kind of guiding principles of coaching is curiosity. It's about asking questions that get people thinking. And if that comes from a place of curiosity, then it's not judgmental. It's not challenging. Well, it can be challenging, but it's definitely not judgmental. And it gets both the asker and the askee thinking in ways that they're not necessarily accustomed to thinking. So I think talking about going straight into talking about leadership, I think something that is a very, very powerful tool for leaders is curiosity.
Yes,
and especially
always in such a rush, aren't we?
And especially in terms of like developing others. I can tell you what to do, but if I'm curious about what drives you, how you can use your talents, how you can reach your potential, then that's much more powerful than saying, Dara, you should apply for this role, or Dara, you should take on that project. In terms of language, and I think some of the other speakers brought this up as well, of like, oh, why do they say it like that? What's that word that I keep hearing all the time that I don't recognize? Weird. It sounds like that. That's not the sound I would have expected there. Or, oh, how do you pronounce that? Why does the pronunciation of that word change? That kind of curiosity. And I think there is something called hook theory, which I've never actually hook. Yeah. Oh. As in hook as in like as in captain. It's to do with swallowing clocks and the fear of crocodiles. Whereby if you're curious about something and then find the answer, that knowledge sticks.
It sticks more easily.
Because you've created a hook in your brain.
Yeah.
Possibly
neuro-linguistic programming, no? They call it an anchor, right?
You have already created the neuronic path that's going to store that piece of information by wondering about it. So then when you find the answer, it goes, and it's there. Whereas if someone comes up and says, right, today we're going to learn the present perfect indicative subjunctive, he's gone.
Yes, I'm here. Just close the window.
You've just turned into a white.
Still here because there's a lot of noise outside. Yes, keep going. I'm with you.
Yeah. So if someone comes in and says, "Hello, everybody. Today we're going to do inversion," and you haven't ever noticed that, you've never been curious about it. It's like, okay, what's that? Whereas if you've been wondering why people sometimes put the verb for the subject, then that's that thing.
Oh yes, exactly.
So curiosity.
If you have it,
analysis. Yeah, you say it's kind of going out of fashion. Unfortunately, it's a pendulum that swings. So I think in the British education system, where we didn't do any kind of language analysis when I was a kid in English. We did it. I did French and German at school.
Yeah.
But and you had to analyze those languages, or like you were taught grammar things about those languages.
Yeah.
Now the pendulum has swung in completely the other direction.
Right.
And you've got little kids learning about mad grammar terms,
subjects and predicates and all of that stuff.
No, not even that.
Objects.
No, not even the kind of stuff that you would know from your own study of languages.
Well, yes.
What are they
that was
called?
What I learned when I was.
The word's gone, but they're these
clauses, subordinate clauses.
No. Stop suggesting ones that you've ever heard of. It's not one that you've ever heard of.
Yes, because it's not ELT.
Yeah, it's completely newly kind of founded, and it's things that it might come to me later on, but it's things that native speakers do automatically anyway. So
yes, but
So it's stuff like not only, but that they give not only a weird label and then teach kids about it.
A verbial phrase, no? or they call
again,
it something else?
you're using Latin-based ones. It will come to me. But,
Okay.
but so they're giving kids this phrase that is completely, absolutely meaningless, that we as linguists have never heard of, and they're using it to teach them to do things that everybody already does. It's not like it's a bit of
Yes.
advanced style that you can put into your writing that will make it
Yeah.
flowerier. It's just a word for stuff that people do
Right.
anyway, right? Anyway.
Yeah.
So, but, and I think Andreina was saying that kind of meta language, that knowing posh words for stuff,
Yeah.
isn't useful in itself. But sometimes knowing how to talk about language is useful. So
Yes.
you might not know the difference between a gerund and a gerundive. Although I did once sit through a lesson in Germany where some 15-year-olds were being told that, and I was like, what?
Well, yes, there's probably a reason for that. Yes, they are. They're very focused on that kind of language analysis.
But if you're learning a language where it's important to know what's a verb and what's an adjective, then maybe those are words that you can that it's useful to know. I think Andreina was also talking about pronunciation.
Yes.
So you might not need to know what a bilabial fricative is.
No.
But if you're learning Spanish, it's good to know that if you get a B between vowels, it's not a B, it's a V. If you can't do that, it's good to know that that's what native speakers say. So, if I'm listening out for someone to talk about Abbas, I'm not going to necessarily recognize it when they say ours. And if I'm in Cuba or the Caribbean, I'm not going to recognize it when they say ours. So that bit of analysis, useful analysis, a degree of analysis that's
yes, sure.
meets your needs.
I think meta language doesn't need to be jargony meta language. I think it's just taking that different perspective, that ability to kind of like step out of it's almost Plato-esque or Platonic or something. This idea of like thinking about what we know and who we are and where we are in relation to everything, and which I think the Greeks were pretty excited about, because everything was kind of uni perspective, at least in terms of people never talked about it maybe before they did. But that is like super, super important for anything. But just it's important for leadership, I think. But because isn't that involved in emotional intelligence? I mean, you're feeling an emotion and you're going to distance yourself from the emotion. Mindfulness does that. You kind of meditate and you see the emotion passing by and you let it go, that kind of thing. So
that's one of the others, isn't it? The awareness.
Yes, and see what's going on. What is this that I'm feeling? Or take a different view as well. That's so important for a leader. Why is that person upset about that? I'm not, but that you've got to put yourself in their shoes, which is easier said than done. Yes,
and getting out of into habits. Something, an example I sometimes use is that thing when you can't find your keys.
Yes.
And you keep looking in the same 4 places where they aren't.
Yes.
But so they're kind of stepping back and getting out of the automatic reaction of
yes. Yeah.
It's like, are they going to suddenly appear in this pocket if I tap it enough? No, I've got to think where else they might be. Either that was a stunning revelation, or you've been turned to stone, or your internet has frozen. Oh, I don't know what happens in these situations when it's live. I should just carry on. What else have we got? Curiosity analysis. The ability to assess your own progress. How do you measure your own process? Darren's completely gone. He'll probably be back, hopefully. So how do you measure your own progress? And I think to do that, you first need to set yourself some goals. So what is it that you're going to measure against? And if we're talking about getting to C1...
I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back. My internet went.
I just carried on talking.
But now I can't hear you. Why can't I hear you?
Oh, I don't know.
Isn't that strange? My speaker seems to have switched off. There we go. So it's very strange. But I'm sure that people can hear you, but I can't hear you. Oh dearie me! But I can edit. We can edit it. Oh, Greg Davies is here. A stunning revelation. Greg, please type it. Thank you very much for coming. Welcome. Can you please type in the when you say a stunning revelation? What are you referring to exactly? The idea of meta language. Let me see what is going on here with my speaker. That's very strange. Hopefully he's still. I can see him. Yes, online. So he's probably thinking about. Dave mentioned meta language. Yes, exactly. What is your take on that, Greg? Because how learners look in the same place for the language they don't know. Isn't that great? I love that idea. I think I'm going to copy that. I'll quote you on that, Greg. That is absolutely brilliant, isn't it? They carry on, or we, because I'm a learner as well, carry on sometimes doing things that do not bring us a kind of success or what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you've gone again.
Okay.
No, you're not.
I still can't hear you, Dave. Isn't that weird?
You still can't hear me. I wonder. That's odd.
Let me. I'm sure it's not your fault.
You've muted me.
I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn off. Turn on. Has that done it?
I don't know. It's going. Can Greg hear me? Well, if Darren can't hear me, that's going to be a bit of an issue, isn't it? Shall I go out and come back?
There we go.
Oh,
can I hear you now?
Can you hear me now?
No, I still can't hear you. Okay.
Let me just try this.
I'm not quite sure what to do. It's so anyway. Yeah. Oh, you can hear both of us. Well, that's good. That's the important thing. But I don't know how Dave and I are going to communicate with each other. Yes, it must be my speaker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with my Bluetooth here. I'm going to disconnect it. We can edit all of this out from the video that goes up, or activado. So maybe if I it says it's connected, but it obviously isn't. I'm going to connect it again. Does that make any difference? There must be. You know what? If there's something in the StreamYard, deactivate again. No, I still can't hear you.
Hello.
Well, my mic is definitely working. What about this?
The wonders of modern communication.
There we go. Yeah, if in doubt, change to another. Go into configuración and change to another thing and change back again, and there you go.
Absolutely, there you go.
Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, so I love that point. Let's explore that a bit. This idea of how you apply that idea to looking for your keys, to language learning.
Yes,
because we bring all of that baggage with us, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
We bring we bring how we were taught at school.
Mm-hmm.
We bring how we've learned other things.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we bring?
What we've seen, like I'm sure the way I look for my keys is the way my dad used to look for his keys. I'm sure I swear in the same he does. So there's that. I mean, we do speak to our parents in a language. It doesn't really matter if it's a second language. I think with my mum, there might have been a bit of French involved because she speaks French. There wasn't any fear of going abroad to a place where people spoke a language that wasn't ours. I think.
Yeah.
that made a very big difference, you know, I think for me. But that's the positive
yeah,
stuff.
that's interesting, because my dad tried for about 60 years to learn French, never really managed it, but was totally and absolutely uninhibited in speaking bad French to anyone who
Good on him.
would basically come within hearing distance of him. So I think, that gave me that confidence to go to places and speak. Definitely. But I was thinking about.
I was going to say some cultures are opaque. Some cultures are opaque on purpose, and I think the French culture is opaque on purpose. And people interpret it as arrogant, but it's actually a. I'm talking to two English guys, the French. People interpret it as arrogant, but I think it's kind of what is it? Well, definitely a secret club. Well, it's a secret club that you need to show what you know, I think. And once you do show what you know, then they love you, because you've made an effort and you've shown.
Yeah, I mean, with him, it was just so weird that I don't think they knew how to react. I mean, he would say things like "Je dis oiseaux dans la tête," and
they do have a great sense of humor, the French, as well.
But if some Englishman walks up to you and says that he's got birds in his head, how are you supposed to react?
Laugh, probably.
Yeah.
So there's all of that baggage.
Yeah, but I think, well, is it Greg? Did I remember his name correctly?
Yes, Greg Davies. Yes.
Yeah. So what he was saying about, how you the lost key thing, and how you bring stuff to your language learning. I was thinking what you bring. So you bring stuff from other disciplines. So if you have studied maths or history or geography or a more fact-based discipline, then you bring that kind of learning facts thing to your language learning. And languages aren't facts. Languages are behaviors.
Yes.
There may be some fact. You need to know the words for stuff. But if you know the words for stuff, that doesn't make you able to use the language.
Yes. I think what I brought is not history,
it's a
science.
Behavior. Okay,
it's the sciences I brought. I brought the sciences because I wanted to be a vet. So I studied all three: physics, chemistry, and biology, which is probably unbelievable for you guys knowing me. And I have a very strong sciences focus. I'm very focused on, observing and, how did that go? And I think, which is different from the history and, history focus. But I'm very happy that I have that, because it is very difficult for people to assess, I think a lot of teachers find it difficult to assess, and they assess the wrong
things. If you only see language as facts, then you miss out on the fact that it's also a behavior, and to learn a behavior you need practice. And that was what Andreina was saying about people who say, I've only got the hour a week that I spend with the teacher. Well, sorry, but that ain't going to work.
No, it's not. And that's where your curiosity comes in. That's where your curiosity comes in. I'm sorry to interrupt. But I think that curiosity, I think I counted yesterday. I asked myself, ChatGPT, a friend, and probably the world in a dictionary about 20 times what was going on with a particular language, mostly Spanish, but I think there's French in there. You can't bottle that. that dry 20 times in one day, do that over a year, the amount of stuff that you learn, and that persistence to ask the same, what was that word again? I'll get there in the end, God, it's gone again, but you do get there in the end after about 10 attempts, it's in there. And that is just, I don't know where that comes from or how you can foster that as a teacher. There must be ways.
Pointing out, saying that this is saying that it's important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think?
That was my. I mean, I think having this kind of conversation that
yes,
this is Especially, I mean, there's different cultures have different attitudes towards language learning as well. And I remember that in Mexico, people talk about what percentage of the language they know, as if it is a finite amount of knowledge. Well, so you have to have that conversation. Because it was interesting. You chose the thumbnail for this conversation as being the video I did about myths about British and American English.
Yes.
And I'm wearing the kind of colonial British soldier outfit. That was about myths, and there are lots of myths about language.
Right, yes. People are very surprised when I inform them that you have to go to school to learn to read. A lot of people are very surprised by that, because they kind of have the idea that, no, we learn our mother tongue naturally, you know, and that extends into reading. And then it's like, hang on a sec, the UNESCO still has about, you know, what is it, like 50 million people on their books as illiterate. They're going for more, you know. They've 97% literacy in most countries around the world, but they're going for the 100, and they've been so successful that people assume that they don't even remember how they did it or how their children are doing it.
Isn't it? Yeah.
You do really have to go to school to learn how to read, because writing systems are arbitrary, aren't they? They're completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
And so you need to learn.
And there's that thing about, that then leads to the myth. He doesn't say his R's. He drops his H's. Speaking came first. Writing is a system for writing down speech. When we speak, we're not trying to accurately represent the written language. But especially in English. But that primacy of, that, and you wouldn't get that wrong about many other things that we do on a daily basis. But people assume that the written language is correct and that speaking is some kind of corrupt form of reading out loud, and it isn't.
Well, it's because writing used to be, not very many people used to be able to do it. It was a sign of prestige, probably led to being paid more in power, and everything was concentrated in being able to write. And that was truer 1,000 years ago than it is now. But even still, you will not get a very good job if you're not able to read and answer 200 emails a day and write reports and create PowerPoint presentations, do a lot of writing, and maybe in 2 or 3 languages,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's not important. It's just that people think it's primary. And interestingly, it's not even, as you were saying, it's arbitrary. So I've got young grandkids. So I've got an 11-year-old granddaughter and a nearly 4-year-old grandson. So 4-year-old grandson can't read yet, but remembering how Kaylin, my granddaughter, learned to read, she was a prodigious speaker. So that whole, it's almost miraculous how kids learn to speak. But but even kind of breaking down speech sounds isn't natural. People can't do it. So she struggled. You have to learn to do it. So that idea, what words begin with sp?
Oh yeah, sounding out. That sounding out that kids need to do. Yes, it's a slow process.
It's a very slow process compared to the fact that their vocabulary is mushrooming on a daily basis.
It is, but they may not be able to join in. Like if we invited one right now, they may not even be. You know what I mean? We would have to slow down.
It would be interesting. I think it would be interesting if 4-year-old broke.
It would be interesting.
He's 3 3/4.
I may be underestimating them.
Yeah, it would be. We would go in interesting directions. No, but we would go in interesting directions. He would have things to say, but they might not be coherent and cohesive.
Okay, right. But it might be fun.
It would definitely be fun. It would be.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on there, but I think the basic thing, if somebody wants a basic tip, it's try to foster your curiosity about a language and do question myths, because how are you going to be curious about a language if, for example, you refuse to use Spanish to help you to learn English when the 2 languages have 30,000 words in common? Sorry, 32,980 real cognates 970, there's 2000. Okay, look, they're most useful in academic English and stuff, but that is a great starting point if you're a beginner, a Mexican beginner, or a Spanish speaker. It's just brilliant, isn't it? And that could be of marvelous use, and then you could focus on the difference in the rhythm. The rhythm of the two languages is very different, so it's, what is it? Chocolate, chocolate. You know what I mean? It's very, very different. It's just 2 syllables and it's spread over 4 beats in English, and in Spanish it's 4 syllables spread over 4 syllables, because that's the rule. It's very strict. You can't make things longer unless you're selling gas in Mexico City, and then you can gas, because you're allowed to do that if you want to draw attention. It's not that stress timing doesn't exist.
Or if you're a football commentator and someone scores one of those goals.
Yes, exactly. It's goal for about 5 minutes. A very good point. I hadn't thought about that one. So it is allowed, but it's a little bit unusual. And but I use it in my storytelling. I can't help it, because my mother tongue is English, and people actually quite like it. As long as small doses, stress timing when you're telling a story in Spanish can be very interesting for natives to listen to, as long as you don't overdo it, because it can be a bit annoying because they do. It's a bit what's the word? Escandaloso. To be constantly so much movement and enthusiasm, but yes, it's what. Let's get back to the point. A curiosity, comparing languages, curious how they work,
but also not thinking that. So there's as you were saying, looking for similarities, looking for differences. And then, but then not assuming that everything is going to be the same.
No.
And not assuming that if there's a difference, then it's wrong.
Right. Exactly.
Where people say, well, how can a chair be masculine and
there's a reason for that.
Feminine? It's ridiculous. Why don't they? And it's like,
that's the formalism there. That's the use of formalism.
It goes back tens of thousands of years. That's how languages, that's how many language families work. Other language families don't work like that.
Yeah.
Railing against it isn't going to change it.
Yeah.
Just accept.
And it doesn't, and denying that a lot of things in Spanish are very similar to English isn't going to help either, because you're railing against this thing that doesn't make any sense. And which, yes, okay, it might be a bit challenging to get your head around, but it's all about attitude, isn't it? Glass half full or glass half empty. And then at the same time making more problems for yourself, saying that Spanish and English are some kind of alien things. When the American embassy says this is the easiest. In fact, don't even learn that one with us. You come into the embassy already speaking Spanish. It's so easy, that one. It's level 1 of the on the scale of difficulty. 0 being English itself for diplomats. Spanish, French, Italian. They're just so similar in many ways to English. And different as well, of course. But it's just going for the easy wins, isn't it? And playing to your strengths, which is something that Alex spoke about, because students are always focused on, and you mentioned this, but how did you mention it? This thing of looking for your keys in the wrong places, correct me all the time, and even for the party, correct me, teacher. And I'm like, do I have to? It's exhausting to correct somebody. And that proves that nobody really is bothered by our mistakes very much. They're more interested in listening to what we have to say and the great things that we're doing with our voice or whatever, rather than get the tiny little mistakes that takes effort to notice those. And you need to be trained to be an examiner and stuff to listen to those things. And AI does it better anyway. So, but everybody goes for the error, right?
Well, I think that comes from that thing of bringing learning experiences from other topics, because maths is either right or wrong.
Or is it? Not necessarily.
Well, I mean, but if you've got a formula, it mostly has a right answer.
Yeah.
Or an approach is either valid or isn't, or a proof either works or it doesn't. And the Battle of Hastings was either in 1066 or it wasn't. Whereas, so people bring, and I know once you go deeper into those disciplines, it's not about the date, it's about
what happened and why it happened and the impacts and all of that. So,
and primary sources versus secondary, whether it's really a story, how much of it is real anyway, and it's a story, isn't it? It's history. All of that goes on. But yes, you're right.
The Battle of Hastings is real because they've got the embroidery. So,
very true, and they can carbon date it. Good point, Dave.
Yeah. Imagine trying to depict a battle using embroidery. Can you all stand still for a couple of weeks? Hang on, I've got my needle out. They were trained instant embroiderers.
They didn't know
like a Polaroid.
That's the first. Oh my God! So they were fast at it. You see, this is amazing. I should slow down and stop being so busy. Isn't it amazing the things that you learn when you slow down? Just pay attention to what's going on. That's what we're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, we should do this. The next one of these should be done in tapestry.
And how fast were they? Does anybody know?
Probably not very, because they were. I don't think they were actually at the battle embroidering as it happened. They were. I think they got to imagine it and then.
Oh, you invented that. You see, it's a story. It's all made.
It's a story. Where was I going with that?
So.
That's the problem with. That's the problem.
How
with
can
crazy...
we bring this down?
Oh, correction. No, sorry. Correction.
Yeah, correction. That's true. We didn't finish on that. Yes.
So it comes from those other disciplines. People, the only way, if you're in a language, if you're in a school and you've got to give people grades at language, you have to find easy ways of grading it. So therefore, if you get
you lie.
Yeah, but
not
I mean,
lie,
especially like in the US, the US education system, they're very worried about bias. They're not so worried about that in other areas, but in education, they're very, very worried about bias. So therefore, everything has to be able to be marked by computer. So everything has to be multiple choice, and so therefore, you have to mark mistakes. You have to try and make as few mistakes as possible. Often, when you write essays, you get red marks around the bits that you got wrong, and points are taken off. So that's a bit of educational baggage that we bring with us. That's part of the tapping your pockets 100 times to find your keys. Yeah. So people bring that with them. I imagine so. People bring that with them into real life. But as I was saying, language use is a behavior.
Yeah.
So unless a mistake kind of impedes communication, it doesn't matter. I actually had a coachee. So one of the people I worked with in leadership coaching, who his English wasn't his first language, and he kept correcting himself, talking to me, and I kind of pointed out, why do you do it? Oh, because I made a mistake. Yeah, but this isn't a language exam. And I think the big revelation for him was the people you work with are not language teachers. They're not linguists.
Yes.
No one has ever told them that you can't use the present perfect after a time when. So if you say we've reached our goal last week, they don't even hear it.
Yes,
they don't
just
even know.
Goal and
reached last week. And even if you wrote it down, they might think, well, they might think, well, I wouldn't say it like that. But the vast majority of native speakers of English wouldn't even know that, according to TEFL training language grammar, that's supposedly wrong. So stop correcting it. So if you said,
it's hard work to notice those.
Yeah. If you say we've reached our goal last week, oh, sorry, no, we reached. That impedes communication.
That's not what they're preparing. That's not the question that's in their head, right?
They are. But that's what this guy was doing. He would say things that were perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
That even though I'm a linguist and was a language teacher for a long time, wasn't really noticing. But then he'd go back and say it again. You are actually having flying a flag saying, "Oh, I said that wrong."
It's even,
when no
yes,
one
exactly.
would notice.
And sometimes it's not wrong. For many years, I've had a student who corrects himself, but he overcorrects himself. So he says it right first, and then corrects it to something wrong, and then we go back to the right. That often happens. But the interesting thing is, we did an experiment, and I told him to just, it's a safe space, just speak, let's just imagine, there are times for being accurate and times for being fluent. And he just spoke, and I counted the errors, and it was pretty much exactly the same number of errors, whether he did the self-correction or not, and real errors, like things that really, or even, yes, no, I compared like with like, even small errors.
Right.
But the only difference was that it was difficult. It was more difficult for me to understand what he was saying when he was stopping and correcting himself, and it didn't do his self-esteem any favors at all to be
it's bad for your
doing that kind of constant
stuff. It's bad for your self-esteem.
Yeah.
In terms of leadership, it's bad for your credibility. It's bad for you coming across as confident.
Yes.
It's bad for you getting your message across. If you are trying to share a vision with someone and bring a team of people on board to a mission, to a vision.
Yes.
If you keep correcting your grammar, is
yes, you're not, because it doesn't sound like you're convinced to see. And then the other thing as well is that
if Churchill had said, we're going to fight them on the we're going to fight them we will fight them on the beaches. We'll fight them on the air, in the air. It wouldn't have worked. Whereas if he said, we're going to fight them on the beaches, we're going to fight them on the air.
Yeah.
It would sound weird, but it sounds confident, and it's.
Yes. Though he is probably an example of somebody who, it's just amazing kind of like awareness and precision in what he said. But I think it didn't come well, actually, who knows, because he suffered very much.
Well, he wasn't doing it he wasn't doing it in a foreign language either. But it was just the point.
No, but
from a rhetorical point of view, the grammar, interrupting yourself and correcting yourself is not a good idea if you're trying to make a
unless there's meaning there.
Right. Yeah, we'll fight them on the air. Yes. It does make it sound like you're going to use radio broadcasts to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I still feel that I still feel that Churchill knew what he was good at. He was super confident about, life is not great on many fronts, but at least I can give a good speech, and write a good book about something. He kind of knew that. And so he came to those situations from a place of strength, which is, it's so important that, and I only discovered it recently. And it gives you so much confidence when you're speaking a language, it's just so important. And he didn't put up with
silly grammarians.
And think about you. Sorry?
He didn't put up with silly grammarians.
Oh, you mean?
So there was. Your Churchill. There was.
Yes.
Apparently, there was something in one of his books where his editor had tried to correct the so-called, you mustn't put a preposition at the end. So he then wrote in the margin, "This is something up with which I will not." This is something up with which I will not put. He wrote.
Right. That's a good way to speak to English people.
No, this was to the editor.
And what did he say? He was
I don't know what the editor said in return. No, I don't know.
But what did Churchill say?
No. So the editor had corrected him for putting a preposition at the end, and his comment was then, "This is something up with which I will not put," to show the ridiculousness of this rule. Because this is something I won't put up with. Is perfectly reasonable, normal English, and something up with which I will not put is bonkers gibberish. So that was the point he was making.
Well, you need to take your audience into account. You need to think about your audience, and at the same time use language that inspires them.
Indeed.
I think so. Anyway, so devil's advocate, anything that you would, because nothing is black and white, is it? I mean, because we are basically agreeing with what,
yeah.
You know, my
I think the correction, because
Irish
Andreina did say correction. Andreina
Yes.
said correction, and I think we've just been saying that maybe only where, sparingly, not as an automatic habit, and only where meaning might be affected. So if you say something and you get met with a bunch of, yeah, but if you do say something and are met with blank looks, then you might want to rephrase it. But otherwise, keep going.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of
if you're with your language teacher party, do not ask him to, yes, counter arguments.
Yeah, language.
I was going to say, if you're with your language teacher at a party, you don't ask him, you know, can you correct me for the next 3 hours? You know, every mistake, please. You know, because we're kind of, you know, chatting here, so it's a good time to correct my. You say, could you listen to me for a bit and tell me what the nicest thing is?
Mm-hmm.
You know, about what I do.
Yeah,
that's you know, very important. You know, and that will be the first time probably that anybody has said anything positive about their language.
Absolutely.
You know, you can actually.
Yeah, no, I love that. Your example in the Andreina conversation, where
amazing. I had no idea.
People telling you what they liked about your Spanish.
Yes, and it was Eddie who always takes the mick out of me about. You know, he's always saying, you know, oh, your Spanish is all right. You know, you get by, because he enjoys just like seeing me annoyed. And when he was off guard and we were talking about something else, like some other activity I could do, it was like, storytelling, you're brilliant at that. You know, so we caught him off guard. But just that was the first time really that anybody had really done that. It's not amazing. I'm 50 years old. You know, I think you can ask a teacher, can't you? They'll tell you. They'd be probably happy that you're not asking.
Are they trained to? That's
every word that you say, you know? Just one positive thing about listening to me. You know, what do you like about what I do with language? That's much easier to do as well, isn't it? Right. And then you can hold it around in your head when everybody else is telling you about all your mistakes with the present perfect. But anyway, devil's advocate, you were saying that
yeah, I mean, because that was one of the questions that you wanted
less correction maybe than what we were assuming.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't think this is a difficult one to be a devil's advocate on, because I pretty much wholeheartedly agree with everything they said. And you know, and how couldn't you? Could I say no? Don't be curious. I mean, I suppose. I mean, what you need to. I think the important thing is that, you know. Is that good advice? Yes. Are there people who don't learn languages following that advice? Yes, lots. So
exactly.
You know, if you can say, don't be curious. Don't be curious. Yeah, there are people who stifle curiosity. You know, teacher, how do I say? How do I say my plane leaves at 3 o'clock next Wednesday? In the language I'm learning. We'll cover that in lesson 5. Don't be curious.
Oh yes, my teacher did that to me.
There's an order.
9.
Yeah, there's an order.
I was stealing her. You know, I was stealing the big idea. Yeah. Go on,
I actually coached someone. I did some language coaching with someone who was actually in my Japanese class. I learned a bit of Japanese before I went to Japan for a conference, and I then took on this person as a client, and he was against the idea of curiosity. I mean, he didn't phrase it like that, but I was saying, you know, my hook theory thing of, you know, if you want to know how to say something, no, I'm perfectly happy with doing it according, you know, whether the order in the textbook. Yeah, but the textbook writers don't know you.
Common arguments, eh?
Yeah,
it's common.
They've got this, you know,
very common.
They have arbitrarily chosen this order of things because they are tasked with writing this thing that has a beginning and an end, and that there's no other way they could do that. But you, as a learner, can think, I wonder how you say X. And it's not like, again, it's not like many other subjects where, you know, I can't answer that question because you haven't done calculus yet. So I can't teach you how to do this thing in maths because it relies on calculus and you haven't done calculus.
Exactly, learning
so there are
not
kind
that
of
way.
But it's not like that. No. And it's interesting. I remember once in the staff room of a teaching center where the syllabus wasn't arranged like that. You could do things in any order you wanted. There were materials. There was a bank of materials that, you know, if someone said, I want to do job interviews, you did job interviews. And this person who was newly arrived and was Delta qualified, but was very linear in her thinking, came running out and said, whatever you do, don't do the job interview thing because they haven't done the present perfect for experience yet.
Wow. I wonder why she... Wow.
And it's like, well,
we could teach it. We just teach it there. It's the same in Spanish. Where was this?
And it's this in Ecuador. So it's like, it was like, okay, one, it's the same in Spanish. Two, it's just having the past participle. It's not advanced calculus. They don't know.
Yeah, and in English we don't focus on the verb phrase anyway. We're focusing on the experience. So get them to talk about that. You know, teach them a whole load of noun phrases.
No, yeah. Oh, this person who doesn't know how to say, I've worked there for 4 years. Well, tell them. And again, hook theory. I just think put someone in a position where they've got to talk through their CV. Where else better to learn present perfect for experience? Because it's just going to come up. Rather than having pictures of the Eiffel Tower and having people saying, have you ever been to Paris? Yes, I have been to Paris. Oh yeah, well,
yes, it is very strange. But this is why I asked you the devil's advocate question. I asked you that devil's advocate question because, you know, I've been doing this for about 30 years. I'm sure you've been in it about 30, 40 years as well. And now you're teaching leadership. You said not very many things are like languages. I think leadership is actually very similar, and many competencies are very similar because a language is in it. Yeah. And
again, it's behavior. And some people still come to that. So
and open minds.
So I don't think anyone's going to say don't be.
There's a lag.
Be curious. Don't analyze the language. Oh, are you talking about lags?
Yes, but there's a lag. That's why I keep interrupting you. So I'm gonna let you speak for a bit. I would just urge caution, open minds, please, from teachers, from institutions, from students who have very strong beliefs too. From you know, just question everything. Because everything probably has a bit of truth in it, and some things have a lot of truth in them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, talking about
that's not
people who
most people are very useful.
Talking about people who seem to function as if Andreina, Maria Luisa, and Alex's views were wrong. I once had a colleague who I had this really this was in Italy. And there was this. For my sins. I was timetabled to teach adolescence. So, but I had this really nice 14-year-old lad who was very motivated, but was going to move away. Was going to move into the middle of nowhere where there were no English schools. And he wanted to get to a particular. He wanted to do a particular level. He was like, I want to finish this level. Which is a meaningless concept, of course, but you know, this was what was motivating him before I moved.
It's a personal goal.
Yeah, it was a personal goal. I'm saying it was a good thing, right? I want to do this before I move to a village up a hill. So I said, yeah, sure. And so spoke to the teacher, and then this meant him jumping a level. So I spoke to the teacher who taught the next level. Yeah, spoke to the teacher who's taught the next level, and he said, "Oh, no. Well, you'd have to do the placement test." So okay. Yes, because my opinion of having taught this guy for a year,
I can see where this is going.
Right? It's nothing compared to some arbitrary test that he's going to do. So then he does the placement test, and he's 1 point below what you need to be to go into this guy's class. Right? No, you can't do it. So I said, okay, look, he got the word, and it was some, he got the word, whatever it was, wrong.
Efficient.
So
he said
if I teach him, So if let's say he didn't know the word efficient. So if I teach him the word efficient, can he come in your class?
And what did he say?
I think I might have gone above his head. I think I might have taken this to management.
Yes.
I took this to management.
It should have just been passed. The whole thing should have been passed based on that particular comment,
Indeed.
So what are we talking about? Being curious, keeping an open mind, calm, urging calmness, no strong beliefs, because it's inevitable, isn't it? That the belief that you're very strong about is going to be wrong in something quite important. But that doesn't mean that it's like completely useless, but it's probably wise not to be too, black and white about things. And finally, because we should wrap up, leadership, because you are a leadership coach specializing in diversity. We've spoken about the fact, we've brushed upon, yes, I'm not quite sure what the adverb is there.
You need to go and ask your teacher how to say
that. Leadership.
Brushed into.
And that's it. I'm back to beginners. Can't speak English. We've brushed against the. It's wrong anyway.
We're brushing up. I'm not sure if there's even. I don't know if there's even an expression with brush. We've brushed up on.
Touched on, Dave. We've touched on.
That's the word you're. That's the word.
The fact that. Correct myself. We've touched on the fact that leadership and languages, or doing languages, I would say doing leadership, and people say that's you don't say that, but in Spanish you do is ejercer el liderazgo, is because there's so much, and I'm probably guilty. I'm probably one of them a little bit. People talk about leadership and stuff, but then when you actually have to get in there and do it, it's not quite as easy then, is it? And it's not quite as perfect. There's very few people able to do it well, I think, in my personal opinion, there's problematic, isn't it? It's problematic and it's difficult. Yeah. It's difficult to teach, isn't it? And teaching English or teaching Spanish or whatever you teach, it's difficult to teach. It's difficult to move people forward with this. And I'm sure maths teachers say the same, but that's something that I don't know very much about. Leadership and languages. So you are a leadership and diversity coach, getting back to the point. And you are also an expert on languages and a polyglot with a following on YouTube of 36,000. And I'm sure you bring the three together. And, I teach the language for leadership. So I'm not teaching leadership really in a way. It's not another leadership course. It is the language that you need for it to do it. And so there is a connection there. So what's your take on that? I know what my take is, but what's your connection between the three, or between
the connection between the three? I think some of the other speakers commented on this as well. So I think, a big part is confidence. And so using language confidently, using language, so that in terms of the curiosity we talked about, the analysis. One thing I find that people often need to work on, whether they're working in their first language or the second language or a mixture, is honing the message to the audience. And I think it's probably especially difficult to do that in a second language. So what am I trying to communicate? What appeals, if I'm trying to influence up, if I'm trying to get senior management senior leadership to approve something, what are those individuals like? How do they think? What kind of messages will get through to them? And then how do I express that in a way that's clear and meaningful and convincing? And it's not just about, it can be about negotiating. It doesn't have to be about managing up. It can also be, having a difficult conversation with someone who reports to me about their performance.
Yeah.
What's the message? What do I want to find out? Where's the curiosity? What do I want to find out about what's going on and what's affecting their performance? How am I going to communicate why I'm having, what I feel the issue is, why I'm having this conversation, what feedback I've received, and what's the goal? And how am I going to, everything I say and do has to be leading towards that goal. And that's something, those are key things, I think. And another thing is where we're talking about, one of your other topics was getting from an intermediate level to an advanced level. So going from B2 to C1.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about
that. Having very, very clear goals in terms of your learning.
Okay. Yes.
So, and I think maybe that's one of the things that was missing from the other speakers.
Yes.
When you say to people, what's your goal in learning this language? Oh, I want to know it all. Okay, the Mexican thing of I want 100% English. Well, you're not going to get that, because it takes native speakers their entire lives
and they never do. I mean, I'm still on physiotherapy.
And they never do it either. Indeed. That's about halfway through the dictionary, isn't it?
No, in terms of careers, and I'm starting to think of the ones that haven't been invented yet as well, and different roles.
So there is a bit of a fast track, and I think I was thinking of some experiences you and I have had together, where we're both very fluent in Spanish on a day-to-day basis. But there was one point when we had to do a press conference.
Yeah.
And that stretched us. And I think we did. We received some very positive feedback about that.
Yeah.
From a competitor, no less. But that was going out of our comfort zone.
And we were coached. I think that's very important. A public relations agency coached us.
Yeah.
They're not language teachers, but we did do a lot of work on what we were going to say. And they didn't care if it was not perfect, but they did. I think that helped a lot.
Yeah. And I was thinking, because you asked about C1, I looked at the descriptors.
Yeah.
So we've got things like can understand a wide range of demanding long clauses and recognize implicit meaning.
Yeah.
We've got can express ideas fluently and spontaneously without much obvious searching for expressions.
Yes.
Can use language flexibly and effectively for social, academic, and professional purposes.
Yes.
Can produce clear, well-structured, detailed text on complex subjects, showing controlled use of organizational patterns, connectors, and cohesive devices. Doesn't say anything about knowing lots of words.
No accuracy.
Doesn't say anything.
Have to be super accurate to be C1. Yeah.
Well, indeed, it doesn't say anything about. Well, I mean, it doesn't say anything about accuracy. It doesn't say anything about knowing weird esoteric grammar structures. So some of the things that we think about in terms of becoming advanced in a language, it doesn't talk about. It talks about what you can do with it.
Sure.
And how do you learn to do things? Practice.
I think you have to learn before you practice. There needs to be some kind of reflection, and then you practice, and then do you know what I mean? You could jump in. I think you could jump in and just
in terms of the proportion of time you spend, if I want to understand a wide range of demanding longer clauses and recognize implicit meaning, the vast majority of my time I have to spend doing that.
Yes.
I can use my curiosity to say, okay, what is it that prevents me from understanding this kind of clause? Why am I not getting the implicit meaning out of this? And there you can go to grammar books and teachers and dictionaries and solve that issue.
Yes.
Just like you would if you were learning to run a marathon.
Right.
Why do I run out of breath after the, my case, second meter? Why would I really rather do it on a bus than running?
Yeah.
What is it that's stopping me from getting to my goal? How do I fix that? Yeah, those are the kind of surgical interventions where you need a teacher, where you need a reference book, where you need a dictionary or whatever. But the vast majority of your time you have to spend practicing doing these things.
For sure. Yeah. If you're going to run a marathon, you don't run more than about maybe a kilometer on the first day, but on the first day they get you to run a bit. There's a long way to go. We need to do a bit of work here, so we may as well begin.
Yeah, and you don't spend a lot of time. I mean, you talked about how to get from B2 to C1 by Christmas. If I was going to learn to run a marathon by Christmas, I would not spend the vast majority. I mean, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. But imagine that I could.
Things, yeah. You do a 10K.
But I wouldn't spend a vast majority of my time watching videos of other people doing it. I wouldn't spend the vast majority of my time learning about or looking at what I do with my arms or whatever.
Right. Yes, the balance is not that way. The balance is, learning, doing, a lot of doing, reflection, probably a lot of reflection, more than people would think is usual. They think it's abnormal, I suppose, the amount of reflection that is actually useful, in my opinion. Much more reflection than they expect. And I just don't know. It's very difficult for a lot of people to get that, all around the world. My cousin complains about Ireland. She is American. She's born and raised in New York City. And she, for her job, her job is to design mock exam papers for government exams to get out of high school. You can tell that those are the happiest days of my life. And she's saying in 2024 that in the Republic of Ireland, they just have to memorize all this stuff, and it's so depressing. And I hate writing these exams. A little bit like my attitude with, how can it be so difficult for people to get this idea that she's saying it, you're saying it, I'm saying it. We're not the only people saying it, but it's
reinforced by that education system because. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
If people are if your entire educational career, I can still see you and hear you.
Yeah.
If your entire educational career is your experience is being taught to memorize those things, then clearly when you then go on to learn a language or learn leadership skills, you think it's going to be about learning to memorize things. I sometimes have clients who come into leadership coaching and will say kind of, okay, so what are you going to teach me then? And that's not my role. This isn't a training course. This isn't a webinar.
Yeah. Yes, I don't know what to do about it, because there are real problems that I have to face on Monday, probably Tuesday, I think. Not even in Mexico. So it's like, oh my, how are we going to deal with this? Because I haven't solved it yet, and it's all based around this idea, these beliefs that students have, teachers have, etc. And it's just, oh my God, what are we going to do about this? But I think we just need to keep plugging away and get people to see, get people to think about, you don't make tiramisu with an oven. It's the fridge that you need, and tomatoes and spaghetti is not going to help either. That's other Italian stuff.
Right.
I was just going to look at tomatoes. I'm actually going to make the tiramisu.
And you don't learn to make tiramisu by reading about it, by watching videos of it, by studying the chemical interaction between the ingredients, learning the history of mascarpone.
You need if you're going to really do it properly, like a lot, you need to start developing those muscles now, isn't it?
It's muscle memory. It's
arm work.
Probably. I've never made tiramisu from scratch. But
you've never made? Oh my God, you're missing out on one of life's more physical cooking experiences. But it is delicious once and all you do is put it in the fridge for 3 hours. So we should leave it at that. This was fascinating, and golly gosh, I mean, maybe we should think of some kind of follow-up task or something to pull people in or something, because I'm still extremely worried. I've said this many times, what you've been saying, you know, and it seems so easy, doesn't it? You know, it's like something that you learn to do, like football or something, and it's just not getting through, you know. It's just well, anyway, maybe we will think of a
It's interesting.
task.
Talking of football, yes. I've got a big green area in front of my house, and the neighbor kids, they're off school at the moment. They're out there playing football,
of course,
pretty much from sunrise to sunset, all day, every day.
Yeah, they know
you'd
you
think they'd be good by now. They enjoy it. You'd think they'd be really good at it by now. But you know, they enjoy it, so they've got curiosity about it. They've got self-awareness. They probably know what their strengths and weaknesses are. And it's practice, practice, practice. They're not reading books about kicking styles. They're sometimes I think one of the dads is a coach, so sometimes he gets them to run round and round stuff. And probably does comment on their he probably does comment on their technique. But again, that's probably 2 hours a week out of the 40, 50, 60 hours a week that they're
you need strength. This is yoga. The whole yoga thing is you need strength to have balance. And how are you going to get the strength? Well, you got to spend about 50 million hours doing muscle stuff and
standing on one leg,
balancing. Then we look at the precision. So anyway, that was brilliant. Thanks a million, Dave. And I hope you would like to come back. I mean,
I think we've only said half of what we were going to say. So
exactly. Well, have a brilliant weekend, and have a brilliant weekend to everybody watching or watching the recording. And we shall be in touch. Take care. Un abrazo.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.